A blessing is moving toward you with the weight of something that has been gathering for a long time. Not a small thing, not a casual thing, not a kindness sent at the last minute to soften a hard week. Something heavy, something prepared, something arranged in layers you cannot see, by hands that have been working long before you knew you would need any of it. You feel it before you can name it. Around you, the air is different, quieter in a way you did not ask for. Slower in places that used to rush. There is a settling happening underneath the noise of your life, and you keep mistaking the settling for delay. It is not delay. It is the moment before the wave reaches the shore, when the water pulls back and looks for a second like it is leaving. It is not leaving. It is gathering. You have been standing on this shore longer than you wanted to. Waiting has done something to you. Some of it cruel, some of it strange, some of it unrecognizably tender, though you would not have used that word at the time. You learned to keep getting up. You learned to keep praying when no one applauded. You learned to ask quietly, because asking loudly had stopped working. What is coming knows about every one of those mornings. It has been shaped by them. It is the right size for who you have become through the wait, not the size you would have chosen on the day the wait began. Put your hand on your chest right now, not as a gesture, as an honest acknowledgement that your heart has been a faithful instrument through all of this, beating its way through fear and grief and stretches of nothing at all. Feel it under your palm. That rhythm is the only thing that didn't stop. Everything else slowed, paused, scattered, returned in a different shape. Only the heartbeat stayed, and what is coming knows that heartbeat by name. You have spent a long time wondering whether you deserved any of this to turn out well. You have measured yourself against people who seem to be living in a brighter timeline. You have counted your missed steps until the counting became a kind of prayer in reverse. Stop counting. What is gathering for you does not know how to speak in the language of merit. It speaks the older language, a language of arrival, a language of what was set aside before there was anything to earn or fail to earn. You are not standing at the cashier of heaven holding up your receipts. You are standing at a doorway, and the doorway has been waiting for you longer than you have been waiting for it. Hear it once. What is coming has already been released. Release happened at the level of decision, in a place you do not have access to, on a day no calendar of yours can locate. Travel is the part you are watching now. Travel is what feels like the wait, but the release is finished. Motion has begun. It is not still being decided. That part is over. There is a difference between something being decided and something arriving, and most of the suffering of the wait happens in the gap between those two events. Something decided carries the certainty of what is already real. Something arriving has the texture of what is not yet visible. Your nervous system was not built to hold both of those at once with comfort. It was built to seek arrival as fast as possible and to read non-arrival as evidence that the decision has not happened or has been reversed or never existed in the first place. None of those readings are true here. A decision happened. Reversal did not. Arrival is on its slow, deliberate way, and slowness is not a comment on whether you matter. Slowness is a comment on what is being prepared and on the architecture of timing that surrounds you, whether you can see it or not. Something inside you wants to argue with that. There is a part of you that has been protecting itself by refusing to believe good news in advance. You have done that for understandable reasons. You have been disappointed before in ways that took months to recover from. You learned that hope, expressed too early, costs more than it pays. So you have kept your face neutral when good things were mentioned. You have whispered your real wishes in rooms where no one could hear you. Neutrality has kept you upright. It has also kept you small. What is arriving does not need your neutrality anymore. It needs a piece of your hope, even a piece you do not entirely trust yet. Not every door that is closed in your life was the same kind of door. Some were closed against you on purpose, by people who would not have wished you well, even if it had cost them nothing. Some were closed by your own hand, in a season when you did not yet know what you were turning away from. And some, most of them really, were closed by something gentler than rejection and stranger than fortune. They were closed because the room behind them was the wrong room. You were not refused. You were redirected. Redirection looked like rejection only because you did not see the door that was opening at the same time, far enough away that it did not feel like a corresponding event. It is hard to live inside redirections that you can only read backward. At the time they happen, they look like loss. They look like negative space. They look like an absence where there was supposed to be a presence. Only later, sometimes years later, do you stand in the place that was reserved for you and look back at the closed door and realize that the closing was the protective gesture you were not equipped to understand at the moment it occurred. You can give yourself permission now, while the next door is opening, to revise your interpretation of the older closings. They were not punishments. They were part of the same shaping that is bringing you to where you stand now. You have been walking toward that other door for longer than you realize. Every detour led there. Every loss redirected your attention there. Every prayer that seemed unanswered was being answered in the slow, structural way that prayers about your future are usually answered. Not in the dramatic exchange you imagined, where you ask and a hand reaches down and places the thing in front of you. In the slower way, where you ask and the world begins, very quietly, to rearrange itself around the asking. Rearrangement takes time because it involves more than you. It involves people you have not met yet. It involves circumstances that were not yet ripe. It involves rooms in your own heart that needed to be cleared first so that what was arriving would not arrive into clutter. What is coming knows all of this. It is not impatient with you for not seeing it. It is not annoyed with you for asking again. It is moving at the speed of being ready, which is slower than the speed of wanting and faster than the speed of giving up. You are not behind. You are exactly inside the timing of something that could not have come earlier without breaking under its own weight. There is also a quiet conversation happening around you that you have not been part of, and that conversation is slowly turning. People who carry a piece of your blessing in their hands, without yet knowing you exist, are softening in directions that will eventually meet your direction. A door in someone else's life is opening at the right pace so that when you walk into your room of arrival, the person who needs to be in that room is also arriving from the other side. You have spent enough nights praying about your own readiness without realizing that the readiness of the rest of the system has been the slower variable. This world is large. It does not move on the timetable of any single heart, but it does move. And the parts that needed to move on your behalf have been moving the whole time. You do not have to engineer the meeting. You do not have to script the conversation. You do not have to manufacture a strategy for how to position yourself next to the right people, the right opportunities, the right unfolding of events. Arranging is being done by an intelligence larger than your strategies. Your strategies have been useful for the part of the work that is yours to do. Another part, the part that involves the timing of other people's arrivals into your life, is not yours to engineer. Lay that part down. You have been carrying it like a second job. That second job is over. There is a particular kind of grief that comes from having waited so long that you stopped imagining the arrival in any specific way. You let go of the picture. You decided it was healthier not to rehearse it. That was wisdom of a kind. It protected you, but it also left you a little stunned now on the threshold because you do not know how to receive what you stopped picturing. Let the unknowing be part of it. You do not have to picture it correctly. You only have to keep the door of your life unlocked. What is coming will know how to enter without your permission to imagine it. That picture you let go of was a smaller picture anyway. You imagine the arrival in the language you had at the time you started imagining. That language was honest and limited. It used the vocabulary of the version of your life that was being lived back then. What is arriving now speaks a more recent language, the language of the life you are living now, and that language has more dimensions than the older one had room for. So even if you had kept rehearsing the picture, it would have arrived as something different than you rehearsed. You are not behind for having lost the picture. That picture had already become outdated before you set it down. What you can keep in place of the picture is the willingness to recognize the thing when it arrives in its actual shape. Recognition is a different practice than expectation. Expectation requires you to know the form of the thing in advance. Recognition only requires you to be honest in the moment of encounter. You can be terrible at expectation and still be excellent at recognition, and recognition is the muscle that matters now. Practice it on small things, an unexpected gentleness in a stranger's voice, an afternoon that turned out lighter than the morning predicted, a phrase someone said to you that landed deeper than the speaker meant it to. These small recognitions are training. They are teaching the muscle that will be needed when the larger thing arrives. Close your eyes for a moment if you can. Let the ordinary noise of where you are dim a little. Notice the shape of the room you are in, even with your eyes closed. Notice that you are sitting or standing or lying down somewhere specific, and that this somewhere specific has been chosen again and again as the place where messages like this one find you. There is something very ordinary about how the holy moves. It does not always require a mountaintop. Most of the time, it requires a chair, a moment of stillness, and a willingness to listen for one sentence longer than you intended to. If these words are landing in you, leave the word yes in the comments, not for anyone watching, for your own ears. So you have to actually agree with this in writing in front of yourself, so that later, when the wait gets long again and the doubt comes back, you can scroll back and find the moment you said yes when you did not yet have proof. That kind of yes is its own form of evidence. What is gathering is not only for you. It will pass through you. It will reach the people inside your house first, the ones who have been close enough to feel the texture of your waiting whether you spoke about it or not. Then it will reach further. It will touch the people who have been standing at the edge of your life, wondering whether anything good ever lands there. It will touch them through your face, your tone, the particular softness that arrives in a person who has just received something they had stopped expecting. You will not have to announce it. They will see it in you. They will see it the way one sees a season changing on someone else's tree before the same change reaches one's own. There is something counterintuitive happening here, and you should hear it clearly. That very thing that felt like the long delay was the thing protecting the size of what was coming. Had this blessing arrived 2 years ago, it would have arrived to a version of you who could not have held it, a version of you who would have spent it badly, defended it poorly, lost it to people who did not love you well, or shrunk it down to fit a heart that had not yet stretched. You did not know you were stretching during those years. You thought you were just enduring. Stretching was the work. What arrives now is the right shape for the size of the heart you now have. That is not an accident. That is the architecture of grace. You can be honest now about how much that stretching cost you. There were nights you should have been believed and were not. There were rooms you should not have walked out of alone and did. There were conversations you needed someone to start with you, and no one started them. That cost is real. That cost is not erased by the arrival of the blessing, but the cost has been counted on a ledger you do not keep, and the entries are not lost. Every difficult thing you carried with dignity is recorded, not because heaven is petty about debts, but because nothing of what you have lived is being thrown away. Even the parts you would have edited out, if you had been the editor, are being woven into something that needed exactly those threads. You may not love the threads. You can still trust the weaving. Hear it again. What is coming has already been released. Say it once, even quietly to yourself, not because the words have power, but because the agreement has power. Agreement is the doorway. Agreement says, I am willing to be a person who receives. I am willing to lay down the protective neutrality that has kept me upright through the weight. I am willing to feel something I have not let myself feel for a long time. I am willing to be surprised again, even though being surprised is how I got hurt before. Willingness is small. It does not have to be dramatic. It just has to be honest. A voice older than your fear is speaking now, and you can almost catch the shape of what it is saying. It is saying, the things you stopped praying for were not lost. They were rerouted. Relationships you released because you ran out of strength to repair them are being held in a different way. Some will return, some will not, and the difference is not your failure. Doors you knocked on for years and never saw open were being kept closed for your protection. The right doors do not require you to bruise your hand. Years that felt wasted were not wasted. They were the soil. Every difficult thing that did not become the thing you feared it would become was a quiet act of intervention you did not see at the time. You have been more accompanied than you knew. Even in the rooms where you were most alone, even in the nights where the silence felt like an answer, even in the moments where you spoke the difficult truth into your own ear and there was no one there to confirm it, you were not unobserved. Accompaniment did not always announce itself because announcement is not always how presence works. Presence is often steadier than announcement. Presence is the thing that stays in the room with you, breathing at your pace, not interrupting the grief, not rushing the fear, not trying to talk you out of what you needed to feel. That is what has been with you. That is what is moving now. You can think back, if you want to a particular night that nearly broke you. There is one. You know which one it is. You did not know that night that you would still be here. You did not know you would be a person who could read a sentence like this one and recognize yourself in it. You made it through that night. That is not nothing. That is the central evidence of your life. Whatever you think about your faith, whatever you think about how worthy you are of what is coming, the fact remains that something carried you across the floor of that night, and it was not only you, and it was not nothing. That same something is carrying you now. It has not changed. It has only changed where it is carrying you to. Accompaniment also knew when to step back. There were moments you needed to do a thing alone, not because you were abandoned, but because the thing required your individual signature. A signature cannot be co-signed. A decision had to be yours. A choice had to be yours. Accompaniment honored that by being silent at exactly the moments you most wanted it to speak. You read the silence as absence. It was not absence. It was the dignity of being treated as someone whose decisions matter. You have been treated, the whole time, as someone whose decisions matter. What is coming is also a response to decisions you made when you could have made other ones. Whisper this back, just once. I am ready to receive what has already been released. You do not have to feel ready. You do not have to be ready. You only have to whisper the sentence that lets your readiness begin. Some kinds of readiness are the result of a decision made in advance of feeling. Most of the important readinesses in your life have been like that. Marriage, forgiveness, choosing to begin again after something broke. You did not feel ready for any of those, and you stepped into them anyway, and the readiness arrived after the stepping. The blessing is plural. That is something you should know. It is not a single object to be placed in your hands and then ended. It is a sequence. A first thing that softens the soil. A second thing that surprises you in a register you did not know you were listening for. A third thing that arrives through a person you would not have expected. A fourth thing that looks small at first and turns out to be the foundation of something you will spend years grateful for. The first thing may already be in your room. You may have walked past it because you were looking for the dramatic version. Look again. the smaller signs are usually the early ones. You have been watching for the wrong shape of arrival. You have been waiting for thunder, and the blessing is arriving as weather, slow weather, the kind that changes a landscape without making a noise. The shift in atmosphere you have been feeling for a few days, the strange softening, the small, inexplicable peace that arrived in the middle of a difficult afternoon, the unexpected kindness from a person who has no reason to be kind to you, the sentence in a song that landed differently than usual, the dream you cannot quite remember but woke up gentler from. These are not coincidences stacked next to each other. These are the early outline. The shape is filling in. You may have to teach yourself a different way of paying attention. The dramatic mode of attention, the one trained by stories that resolve in a single scene, will keep telling you that nothing is happening. The slower mode of attention, the one that notices the difference between two similar afternoons, between two versions of the same room on different days, between two breaths taken under similar pressure but with different inner weather. This is the mode that will recognize what is unfolding. Most people are not taught the slower mode. You are being taught it now. The teaching is a gift inside the gift. The capacity to recognize quiet movement is itself a blessing, separate from the specific blessing it is helping you recognize. There is a name for the season you're in, even though no one around you is calling it by name. It is the season of the verge. The verge is not the arrival, but it is also not the wait. The verge is the part where you can almost see the thing that is coming, the way you can see a city's lights from the road before you see the city itself. The verge is uncomfortable. It feels like waiting and like arrival at the same time, and your nervous system does not always know how to hold both. So you swing between hoping too much and hoping too little, between acting as if it has already happened and acting as if it never will. Let yourself swing. The verge is supposed to feel like that. You are not failing at faith because you cannot decide which version of yourself to be in this moment. Stop here a second. Do not read the next sentence yet. Let what has already been said find a place to land in you. Sometimes the words that matter are the ones you read past the first time because you are trying to get to the conclusion. There is no conclusion. There is only this, that you are loved, and that what is loved is being moved toward, and that the moving has been long, and that the moving is now nearly complete. The financial part of your worry is not invisible. The relationships you cannot fix from where you are sitting are not invisible. The body that has been tired for too long is not invisible. The decision you have been postponing because every option looks like a small loss is not invisible. The grief that arrived years ago and never finished is not invisible. The blessing that is gathering is large enough to touch each of these, not all at once, but in the right order, in the right way, with the right pacing for what each of them actually needs to be repaired. You do not have to triage. You do not have to choose which part of your life gets healed first. The order is already known, and the order is wiser than the order you would have chosen. There is a particular thing you have not allowed yourself to ask for, because asking for it felt like too much. You buried that request a long time ago. You have prayed around it for years without praying for it directly. You did not want to be greedy. You did not want to ask for the impossible thing in case the asking ruined the smaller things you were still willing to hope for. You can lift that buried request now. You can take it out of the ground where you put it. It will not contaminate the rest of your prayers. The thing you have been afraid to ask for is the thing the blessing has been most carefully shaped around. You have been taught, in ways you did not always notice, that wanting too much is a kind of failure of character, that wanting itself is suspect, that the spiritually mature person trims their wanting down to the smallest acceptable size and accepts gratefully whatever fragment is given. There is a half-truth in that teaching, but the half that is true does not apply to the buried request. The buried request is not greed. The buried request is the place inside you where your specific aliveness is hiding. The blessing wants that place. It wants to find that place and meet you there. It cannot meet you in the diminished version of yourself that you have been performing because you thought performance was humility. Humility is not the shrinking of your wanting. Humility is the honest acknowledgement that the wanting was placed inside you by something that knows what it is doing. There is no accident in your address. There is no accident in the specific version of your life that you woke up inside. The improbable people you have met along the way, the rooms you have entered by mistake that turned out to be the right rooms, the conversation that changed the trajectory of a year, the failure that redirected you toward the actual path, the loss that taught you what the gain would have hidden, all of these were authored. Authored is not the same as forced. You still chose. Your choices still mattered, but your choices unfolded inside a story that was being written with you, not despite you. The blessing that is gathering is the next page of that story, and the page is already written. You are turning toward it. The page is turning toward you. The collaboration between you and the authoring is older than your awareness of it. You have been collaborating since before you knew what collaboration meant. The instincts you trusted that turned out to be right. The people you walked away from when something inside you said walk. The offers you turned down that would have looked good on paper but felt wrong in your gut. All of those small no-saying movements were collaboration. The yes-saying movements too. The risk you took when there was no reasonable evidence the risk would pay. The kindness you offered to someone who could not pay it back. The forgiveness you extended before you knew whether it would be received well. Each of those was a co-authored sentence. The book is thicker than you thought. The book has a shape you can almost see now from this vantage point. You are not the same person who first asked. You can feel the difference. Some of the difference is sorrow. Some of it is sturdiness. Some of it is the strange humility that comes from having been wrong about timelines you were once certain about. The new person you are can hold what the old person could not. That is not a punishment for having been the old person. That is the dignity of having become someone larger through the difficult middle. The blessing arrives to who you are now. Receive it as the person you are now. Do not apologize for not being the version of yourself who first asked. That version did the asking. This version does the receiving. Both of them are honored. Listen for what comes next. Not in the form of an announcement, in the form of a settling. You will know it because something will stop hurting in a place that has been hurting for a long time. Not all the hurt at once. A specific hurt. A specific tightness loosening. A specific worry quieting. That is the first letter of the blessing. Read it as a letter. Read it as a sign that the rest is on its way. Do not require the entire alphabet to arrive in a single afternoon. Pay attention to what your dreams are doing, not because every dream means something, but because your sleeping mind is sometimes the first place the new arrangement begins to register. The dreams may not be dramatic. They may simply be quieter than they have been, or strange in a way that is not threatening but is unfamiliar, or returning to a place you have not visited in years and finding the place softer than you remembered. The sleeping mind is closer to the floor of your life than the waking mind is. It hears the foundation moving before the rest of you does. If you wake up gentler, that is data. Trust it. Pay attention also to your body in the late afternoon, the hour when the energy of the day has begun to drop and the night has not yet arrived to tell you to rest. That hour reveals a great deal about what you are actually carrying. If you find yourself less heavy in that hour, lighter in your shoulders, less prone to the small irritations that used to tip you, that is also data. The body is a trustworthy witness to the slow movement of grace. It will know before your thinking knows. Your job is to read what your body is telling you and not override it with the older story about how you are doing. You will not have to convince anyone that this happened. The people who needed to see it will see it. The people who would not have believed you no matter what you said will not be your audience. The blessing does not need defenders. It only needs receivers. Be a receiver. That is the only job in front of you in this season. Not the job of explaining yourself, not the job of justifying the wait, not the job of producing evidence ahead of time, the job of receiving what has already been released. There is one more thing the verge requires. It requires you to stop arguing with yesterday. The hours you have spent rehearsing what you should have done, what you should have said, the relationship you should have left earlier or stayed in longer, the choice you cannot take back, the version of yourself you wish had been wiser at the moment when wisdom would have helped. All of that argument is using energy that the receiving needs. You can lay the argument down. You do not have to win it. You do not have to lose it either. You can just put it down on the floor of the room you are in and step over it and walk forward into the part of your life where the past has stopped voting on who you get to become next. The argument with yesterday is also an argument with the version of yourself who had to live yesterday. That version did the best they could with what they had. They did not have your current information. They did not have your current strength. They did not have your current capacity to see patterns at the scale you can see them now. Treating them as a fool, in retrospect, is unfair to who they actually were at the time. They were not a fool. They were a person doing their best with insufficient light. The light increased afterward. That is how light works. The increased light does not retroactively make them stupid. It only makes them earlier. You can let them be earlier. You can stop punishing them for not being you yet. The blessing is also an act of reconciliation between you and the earlier you. It says, that person was worth the protection it took to get them here. That person was worth the slow patience that made the wait survivable. That person was worth the strange detours that protected what was possible for them later. The blessing arrives partly to honor that person, who is also you, and who has been carrying the project of you across a long stretch of difficult ground. You can let them rest now. You can let them be thanked. You can let the resentment toward them dissolve, because the receiving requires the whole of you to be present, and the earlier you is part of the whole of you. The mercy in your life has been more constant than the consolation. The two are different. Consolation is what you wanted. Mercy is what you got. Mercy is the thing that kept you alive through what should have ended you. Mercy is the thing that delivered you to this verge, even though mercy does not always feel tender on the day it is operating. Look back over the last 5 years. Find the rooms you should not have made it out of. You made it out of them. That is mercy, not luck, not your strength alone. Mercy walking with you through doors you did not know were doors at the time. You can rest now. Resting is part of the receiving. The blessing does not require you to stay awake guarding it into existence. It is moving on its own track. Your part is to keep your hands open. Your part is to keep your face turned toward the direction it is coming from, even when the direction looks empty. Your part is to refuse the voices that want you to close back down right before the arrival. Some of those voices are inside you. They speak in your own register. They sound like wisdom because they sound careful. They are not wisdom. They are the protective contraction. Your fear is trying to perform one last time before the new thing makes the old fear unnecessary. Let the new thing make the old fear unnecessary. That is allowed. You do not have to keep the fear out of loyalty to who you were when the fear was keeping you safe. Loyalty to that version of you is honored, but the loyalty does not require the fear to stay. The fear has done its work. You can thank it. You can release it. You can step into a posture of receiving that does not require defending. The blessing is also forgiving. That word may have been weaponized in your past, used to make you feel guilty for not forgetting fast enough. That is not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is the slow arrival of being able to set something down without needing the other person to come back and apologize. The blessing brings that capacity with it. You will notice in the weeks ahead that something that used to feel sharp has begun to feel softer. That is not denial. That is the muscle of your heart growing strong enough that the old wound no longer dominates the room. You do not have to forgive on a deadline. The capacity is being given. Use it when it arrives. You will know yourself differently after this. You will catch your reflection at an unexpected moment, and you will recognize with a small shock that the person looking back is more whole than the person you have been describing yourself as. That gap between how you describe yourself and who you have actually become has been closing for a while. The blessing closes it the rest of the way. You will speak about yourself with more accuracy. You will stop using the old vocabulary of someone who is still in the wait. You will not become a different person. You will become an honest version of the person you have been all along, finally allowed to walk in your own size. The closing of this message is not the closing of what is happening. It is the part where you take what has been said and carry it back into the ordinary motion of your life. The ordinary motion is where the blessing will find you, not in a special posture, not in a dramatic event you have to manufacture to be ready for. In the small turning toward, the small willingness to keep your eyes open, the small refusal to talk yourself out of what your body already knows is true. Your body knows. That is something you should hear. The settled feeling in your chest right now, the unfamiliar quiet behind your ribs, the way your shoulders have dropped a quarter inch since you began listening, all of these are your body recognizing what your mind is still processing. The body is often the first to register grace. Trust it. Let the quiet stay. Do not rush back into the noise that was here before. Amen. If these words found a place in you, stay close. There is more coming, in voice and in shape, and the next time you hear something like this, it will land in a heart that has already begun to soften. Subscribe so the next message reaches you on the day it is supposed to. Share it with one person whose face came to mind while you listened. That sharing is part of how the blessing keeps moving.